Okay, welcome. So, if you're on this video, obviously you read the title, and I'm here to kind of give you a boost and let you guys know really what the deal is when it comes to your ideas, your plans, your goals, your vision. What are your aspirations, and what is your purpose? Okay. Now, I'm gonna go through hills and valleys, not necessarily in this one video, but in general in a series of videos. Now, I wanted to let you know a little bit about myself, just so that you have context and just don't think I'm a random dude on YouTube. Although I am a random dude on YouTube. My name is Joseph Musi. I'm a father of three. I've been with my wife for 40 years. I've been a creative director. I've been a producer. I've done TV commercials. I'm an author and have written approximately 10 books. I've been fortunate enough to write articles in publications. And in general, I'm an artist. And I also own a martial arts school called Wing Chun Science, or WCS. So, of course, there's much more to everything, but I wanted to give you an idea in a nutshell. I've owned a couple of businesses. I've been fortunate enough to have worked at a capacity before I owned my businesses, working at a capacity where, I'm managing millions of dollars in creative, managing crews of people, artists, um, and managing clients and their expectations. So I've had a pretty full life. I've had a pretty lively life. Now, of course, at my age, you're not going to live life this long unscathed. The whole purpose of this video, and why I preface by just telling you, some of the things that I've done, and, just barely scratching the surface of some of my accomplishments. The main thrust of this video is to let you know that everything that you're imagining, everything that you think you can do, everything that you want to do is 1 trillion percent conceivable. Now, it's doable. It's more than just conceivable. Now, of course, that sounds cliche, and a lot of people hear that from a lot of different people. Um, I am your average Joe Schmo. I was born and raised in New York City in the early '70s, when it was probably just as unsavory as it is now, but in a different way. The dynamics were definitely different back then, going from early '70s to mid '70s to late '70s into the '80s and so on and so forth. Oh, did I mention that I was a New York City breakdancer? Okay, well, think about that for a second. An actual original breakdancer. So as you can see, I've had a full life. I've lived a life and am living a life with fulfillment, and that's pretty much the key here. Okay, we all want to do things. We all want to learn things, and it's best if you want to impact other people's lives, because the amount of responsibility that's going to be on your shoulders is going to be that much greater, especially if you want to make an impact, not only in your generation, but in the generation to come. And that can be indirectly through the way you interact with people, or directly with the way you interact with your family. This story here, and as we go on in series, I want you to understand that the reason why I was able to live the life that I've led, and I'm telling you this not to, I'm not showing off at all, as a matter of fact, but it's to show you that, an average Joe like myself, no pun intended, that's my name, Joseph, coming from the Lower East Side of New York City from the early '70s, all the way until this point in time in my life. We're gonna go through things, and I wanted to make this video and the series of videos that's coming after this. I've written several books on this topic, but in different angles of this particular topic. But basically, I'm saying again to you guys, everything is possible. And I know that sounds cliche, but I'm going to give you a little hint that, in life, nothing is really given to you. And if something is given to you, good for you, but you, at the end of the day, have to be a good steward of what has been handed to you, what you have. My story, like I said, come from the Lower East Side. I'm a Hispanic descent, which was at the time frowned upon, and that's totally fine because I don't subscribe to woe is me, racism and all that stuff. I don't subscribe to that. My life is exactly the way I planned it to be, and that includes all of the pitfalls and the decisions that I've made. As a matter of fact, I wrote a book called The Superpower of Decisions, and that was my first book. And it is about the decisions that you make. Now, with that being said, aside from making whether you make good or bad decisions, life is still going to cover or encapsulate everything else and fill in the cracks of your life. But at the end of the day, you ultimately set the tone, um, and you set the path to where it is that you want to head, and that's where you will go. Now, in my earlier life, my earlier days as a teenager, it all started out. Nobody has the perfect life. Nobody has the especially perfect upbringing. But I had two parents that loved me, but they got divorced at an early age, and that didn't have literally a sway this way or that way for me. I love them both. But me as a person, I just learned early on that there are things that if I'm going to acquire, I'm gonna have to go after it myself because nothing is going to be given to you. And if somebody gives you something, it's going to be one of two reasons. One, because you need it, and they're a great person that saw your need and they gave you something, and that's great. The other reason is they're going to give you something because they're expecting something back. And, I would say 8 out of 10 times it's going to be the latter. But I'll fast forward until the time when I was working in a mailroom. Now, I was working in a mailroom primarily because it was by accident that I got the position through my sister in law. It was an opening, and I went there. I never really saw myself as a mailroom guy, but nonetheless, I ended up being a fantastic mailroom guy. But with that came a lot of growth, a lot of understanding about myself, a lot of maturity. I was at that company for 5 years, and it wasn't just a regular company. It was a very well-known ad agency, um, and that I again serendipitously fell into, and I'm grateful for that. And I would say that at the beginning of the time of me being there, um, I always wanted to work hard. I did work hard, but I always had this vision of how can I make something better. So, working in the mailroom, you have to do A, B, C, D, all the way through Z, between making deliveries, between giving the internal mail to people, to driving the owners of the company to wherever they want, to making deliveries to each client, to making Xerox copies, and so on and so forth. I mean, there's a billion things to do. But in my mind, I started to build systems. How can I make this not easy but more efficient? All right, because I wasn't just always about making something easy. I want to get the job done, and I want to earn my keep. I want to make sure that what I do, I put everything in it. So we'll fast forward. One day I'm doodling on my lunch break, and I was asked by one of the artists there, and she was a well known person at the time in this industry, and she saw that I drew something, and she asked me, did you draw that? And I said, yeah, I drew it. It wasn't anything big in my eyes, but that was her way to start the dialogue, the communication that she ultimately wanted to do, and that was, um, have you ever used a computer? Did you ever think about doing this type of art on a computer? And at that time, I mean, I barely passed high school. I didn't have a college degree, and I don't have a college degree. So I consider myself stupid because that's what everybody always said I was. And I believed the lie. I'm going to be honest with you. But I didn't believe it as in, woe is me, I'm stupid, I'll never add up to anything. I just said, well, I'm kind of stupid. I don't know if I could learn that. But she said, well, I'm writing a book on how to take someone like yourself, with obvious talent and skill set, ability to create art, and how to translate that onto the computer. And she says, if you're interested, I can teach you. And so obviously every day after work, I would go straight to her house and she would teach me. I took up the offer, obviously. And what I noticed in that process was I developed an insatiable appetite to learn more, to do more, and then ultimately to be more. So it went from the one software package, which was the only thing that she promised, to doing two software packages and three and four and so on and so forth. And I was just like a sponge. I was just absorbing this. And on top of that, because I was in an ad agency, every time I went back to work the next day, all of the guys on the computer, that was called the desktop department because it was publishing, desktop publishing, and there was a guy there who did 3D animation. There was another guy who was just starting with motion graphics. There was another guy who was doing the programming for interactive CDs at the time. And I wanted to learn more. I wanted to learn it all. At this point, obviously, I didn't have the type of money you need to buy a good computer system. So I bought myself a little black and white Apple laptop. And yes, it was black and white. But what it did was it taught me how to use Photoshop in black and white because I was just using the actual colors. So I was using the levels, the histogram, the curves, and using numbers in Photoshop to do color correction, believe it or not. So while it may have seemed like, wow, why is this dummy using a black and white laptop? I mean, first of all, that's all I can afford. But two, you make do with what you have. And that's the type of person that I am. And we'll fast forward, okay? I went from that point in my life to being someone who superseded all of the other artists um, in general in my life, and became the expert. But simultaneously, in that time frame, it wasn't just about uh, knowing the software. For me, it turned out I found myself as a leader, and I either became one or I was always born to be one. But either way, I started discovering that ability. But more importantly, the places that I was working for, because it went from one ad agency to another ad agency to another ad agency, and word got around that if you want to build a department that's going to be lucrative and have a new multi-million dollar revenue that they didn't have before, then you want to hire Joseph Musi. That's me. So that's kind of the reputation that I built, and it's primarily not just because I knew the software, but because I knew the software and I was able to manage. I was able to manage people. I was able to manage the account executives. I was able to manage to the clients. And then it got from managing all that to pitching for new clients, to becoming part of the pitches, to I mean, I got so inculcated into the whole creative arena that ultimately is what my identity was. Um, and I'm going to leave the story there just to let you know that it was lucrative, very, very lucrative. And it was something that I was completely successful in. And I want to finish this story for this video. And I definitely would love for you to stay tuned for the subsequent videos to hear the rest of the story. And I'm just trying to give you a taste of how somebody like myself, an underdog, someone who didn't come from money, someone who doesn't have very much formal education, keyword formal education, okay? Not in that institute. My education comes from real life, real world experiences, putting my money where my mouth is, investing in myself later on, educating myself with books, with CDs, with DVDs, and time with people and equipment, expensive software and hardware. So, I definitely invested in myself and put my money where my mouth is. And it was ended up being a beautiful, lucrative life, not only for myself, but for my wife, my family. But in the next video, you're going to see that, that's not always everything. That is not the thing that you can always rely on, because time changes, society changes, rules changes, people change, abilities, and so on and so forth. And that's kind of where I want to take you guys with this, is that take this first video and say, okay, cool. Wherever I'm at right now, so wherever you're at right now, this is your starting point. This is, and even if you've been successful, you have to look at almost every day, at least, at this, that's every day, but at least every year, as a place to say, okay, this is my new reset, this is my new starting point. So I want you to never feel comfortable in where you're at. And I don't say that in a way like, don't be happy with what you have. I don't mean that by any stretch of the imagination. But so long as you live on this planet, you will need to survive. You will need to not just survive, but you will need to thrive. And especially if you're looking to be a force or an impact, not just in yourself, but into the greater society, if not the world. And that is an important thing. So once you understand what it is that you were created for, and have that purpose, and you have that driven life, that you have to and you must, because a lot of other people are dependent on that, then this is the type of trajectory that you're going to need. So I would love for you to follow my journey. This is the first video of many to come of this journey. If you guys want to fast forward ahead and find a cheap, easy way to get to the end of the story, you can simply just purchase my book. The link will be down in the description. It's called From the Mailroom to the Boardroom. You don't have to. You can stay and watch the whole series. I'm going to be putting one video out a week. I'll try to do 2 videos a week, but and the reason why the video is important is because I really want you to get the details. You might fall. I mean, remember, I'm 55. You might fall under one of those peaks and valleys that you may be currently in now, or you haven't gotten there yet, or you're in a completely different place. Maybe later on in one of my other videos, you'll be in one of those places. But the bottom line is that you have to have a sane mind. You really have to stay true in believing that you can absolutely do whatever it is that you want to do. And of course, if God is for you, who can be against you? And if that same God that created you with the purpose is inside of you, then I can guarantee you there's nothing you can't do. And I'm looking forward to you checking out the other series. And by all means, write your comments here. And like I said, you don't have to, but there's a link below to the book. Check it out. It's called From the Mailroom to the Boardroom. And I think you will enjoy it. All right. If not, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.